And it looks like we are live. Give me a second, guys. Got to let the stream breathe, get our Facebook groups in here, and have our wonderful community join together here on a wonderful, wonderful Friday evening, last Friday before the draft. Mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country. Welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I am your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me as per usual is my good friend and colleague. He is Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only Erick Trickel. And like I just said, Erick, we are now less than a week away from the opening of the 2023 NFL draft. All of our hard work in terms of the scouting reports and stuff like that finally coming to a head. We're going to finally figure out who the Broncos are going to take next Friday, a week from today, at number 67, 68 overall. Man, you getting excited?
Yeah, I am. Been talking a lot with Chad, getting everything hammered out for the live draft shows and figuring that all out, getting everything up and ready for my own personal board, which I'm hoping to tweet out probably next Tuesday or Wednesday, which in those boards, you'll have links to every single scouting report that we have up. All by that time, 412 of them are going to get done, either written by me or Lance. So it's a lot of work in that final stretch. Still have a few scouting reports to get out there that we're looking at getting up by Tuesday evening, Wednesday morning, and then just getting the board out there and all that, and just having my last basically 10 months of work be finished, and then I get go on a little vacation. I get to go down to going down to Utah. Then I'm going to be driving over to Colorado and seeing some family, seeing our guest from last week, going to his wedding, getting a nice vacation, and then when I get back, I get another little bit of a break, and then it's all right back to it, starting everything with the draft for next year, getting everything ready for the season. So I'm ready for it to be over because I'm ready for the break. I am exhausted.
I don't blame you, man. Like you said, 412 scouting reports, guys. That's a lot. That's obviously there's 257 picks, I believe, in this year's NFL draft. So we've gone almost twice as many prospects in terms of our evaluations that we've got done. And while I want to take a little bit of credit for that, I'm super proud of the work that Erick has done here and everything that he's been able to accomplish, especially this season. I've done 98 of them. Well, by the time that I'm done getting them all sent in, I will have done 98, which is twice as many as I usually do. I've gotten 239 finalized reports done for my own work that I just haven't gotten into yet. And hopefully I'm going to be releasing my big board as well, probably Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm not going to be nearly as in-depth as Erick's is, but I'll have a big board and position rankings, and I'll tweet that out for everybody as well. So looking forward to be able to do that and just have some fun with everybody and just continue this conversation going and really get into the meat and bones of the NFL draft, and really looking forward to the live shows this year. I believe we're trying to work out the roundtable mock draft as well, still kind of getting some information gathered for that. But today, guys, great show planned for you guys. We're gonna have a mailbag in here as well, guys. So send in your players, send in any prospects you want the Broncos maybe take a look at. We'll give you all of our opinions on all those guys. Erick's really done a whole lot of work here, but today the big meat of the show is going to be our top 5 fits and our worst 5 fits for the Broncos throughout the draft. It doesn't matter. I've got wide receiver, running back, safety, edge defender, offensive lineman. Erick's got a couple of different guys. So we're going to go a bad fit and a good fit for each one of those guys. Before we get into it, I want to say hello to everybody. Got Michael Ronquillo jumping in with his support early, as always. Thanks, Mike, for joining us, man. We appreciate you, dude. Good evening, Lance and Erick on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Broncos and buck 'em. No Scott tonight, guys. Scott has baseball games with his kids this week, tonight and tomorrow, I do believe. So he's not going to be around for us tonight, so just bear with us. We've got David McElrath, Bobby Robbie's in the house, Dylan Von Arks, Kevin Gray, Paul. What's going on, guys? Thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate your guys' support and for joining us here on a wonderful Friday night. Now, Erick, let's just jump right into this thing. I'm going to have you go first. I want the best fit. What do you have? Interior offensive lineman, I believe, is one of them that you have.
Yep.
So let's go into your best fit at the interior offensive lineman for the Broncos.
Well, first, I just want to say Paul is correct. Worst fits anyone from Iowa.
Yes.
Just anyone, whether they play football or not. Anyone from Iowa. No, I mean, there's actually a couple good fits from Iowa this year, obviously, but we got to keep the running gag going about Nick Kendall and his love for the Iowa Hawkeyes. But the best Hawkeye remains the Hawkeye from MASH. Anyways, my best fit on the interior offensive line is Joe Tippmann. And the question, there is a serious question. Will he be there for the Broncos at 67? It is impossible to predict with how people fall. I think the fact that he's a 6'6" center who doesn't have a lot of experience working at guard is going to work against him. I also think that the fact that there is some shoulder surgeries in his history, which is a concern for offensive linemen. Not all injuries are equal for different positions, but shoulders and knees, those are pretty bad ones for offensive linemen. But I mean, he checks all the boxes. He's an excellent fit for the Broncos. He's an immediate upgrade over Lloyd Cushenberry. Come in and can start right away. Obviously, there is the issue of him being 6'6" and Russell Wilson being 3'4", and having seen over that and trying to work the middle of the field. Obviously, Russell Wilson's not actually 3'4". Just a joke there. But it's so that is a bit problematic. But the way the Broncos have built this offense and have made it quite clear, they want to run the ball. Mm-hmm. And Joe Tippmann is a great run blocker. Mm-hmm. I mean, and you won't have the concerns you have with Lloyd Cushenberry when it comes to running the ball from him. So I think that he's the best fit if he happens to be there. I don't think it's likely he falls there, but if he does, it would be hard for me to not stand up on the table and stomp my feet and scream for him to be the pick. As for my worst fit on it, Jovan Gwynn. He's a guy who's going to be moving from guard to center. He's way undersized. I think he came in at just about 6'1", barely. He doesn't have great length, around 30-inch arms there, which isn't great for his center position. He's smart and tough, and he can fit the scheme well, but it's not a guy who's going to come in, be a starter right away. It's not a guy who's going to come in and really compete for the starting position even. He's not going to be serious competition for Lloyd Cushenberry for it. He's got a lot of work to do. He's praised for his intangibles and everything, which is great. But for me, if I'm drafting somebody on tier offensive line, I am wanting somebody who can come in, start right away, or compete right away for the starting center job.
I haven't seen Jovan Wynn yet, so I'm not going to comment on him, but I have some stuff on Tippmann. Like you said, he had double shoulder surgery, labrum surgeries on both of his shoulders. Like you said, 6'6", so natural leverage issues are a big concern with him. But for a guy that big, 6'6", 315, I think is what he is, somewhere around in there, he moves really well. Like, he's a really good puller. He plays with a lot of power. He's a good pass protector. There's some issues with his hand placement at times that I see. And I heard some speculation. This was from Trevor Sikkema on his podcast a few days ago, talking about how when he gets out and he extends his arms, he gets his arms on the outside. So he's wondering if maybe it's some of that shoulder issues that he's having, and maybe it hurts to have that good proper hand placement because it hurts on that shoulder. So that's a concern to me. But in terms of everything else you said, and like I said, he's a great mover. He's super powerful. He's a great run blocker. He'd be an immediate upgrade over Lloyd Cushenberry. If he's there at 67 or 68, the Broncos definitely need to be taking a look at him. I'm going to go ahead.
Real quick. With the whole shoulder thing, that is something that I noted for him. I'm actually working on his scouting report along with some of the other top interior offensive linemen right now, hoping to get that up published tonight. It'll be about 11 p.m. midnight Mountain Standard Time. But that is something that I saw. And I don't want to say it's because of the injury, because honestly, we just don't know. That is, as you said, purely speculation on it. And there are times, especially when he's getting outside and pulling, that he will bring it up and he will get under the breastplate of defenders and drive them back with his arms tight inside. Mm-hmm. But the issue with it being on the outside is that he struggles to get defenders out of his chest when they get in there. Mm-hmm. And when you're playing to the outside of the frame, you're keeping your chest open and from right away. So if he had the recovery ability to get defenders off his chest, I wouldn't be as concerned about it. But because he doesn't, that is a bit of a concern there.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct there. And like I said, 6'6", you have natural leverage issues, and especially because he does kind of pop his shoulders up just a little bit as well. So there's some pad height concerns there, just being a bigger guy for the center position. And like you said, you've got a 2 foot tall quarterback that weighs 205 pounds and has trouble seeing over taller offensive linemen. It's an unnatural fit, but I still think it is a very good one. Ryan Powell jumping in here really fast before we flip over to my side. He says, "Good evening, Lance, Eric, Scott, and Broncos country. Eric and Lance, thanks for all you do for the draft. So Eric, which name should we be looking at for in UDFA?"
I'm only going to give a couple guys here. Going off of my board that I have in the works right now. Just because, I mean, there's a lot of guys and then there's always the unpredictability of the draft. Let's see here. Somebody that I really like. There's actually a question about him in the chat as well from Phil McLaughlin asking. He says, "Good evening, Lance and Eric. What do you guys think about Matt Landers from Arkansas?" He's one of those guys. If you still want receiver depth, I would look at Matt Landers as an undrafted free agent. I really like his game and what he can bring to the offense. Of course, I don't think he'll be a large contributor right away. He's a guy that I think come in and compete for, that last spot on the roster at the receiver position, but mostly a practice squad spot. But if he can develop, I think he can find himself as a good depth receiver, as that fourth or fifth guy on the rotation who can contribute on special teams as well. So he's one of the guys I would look at. There's a couple offensive linemen that I would look at that I just give me a second so I can find my play where I'm at on my board. There's a guy out of Hawaii that I didn't get around to just until last week, actually. Il Manning, dude, fits the scheme extremely well. Powerful, solid movement skills, a lot of technical issues. Going to be older as a rookie, and just I think he's got a ceiling to where he could end up a starter in the NFL, and a pretty solid one. I think his best spot is a reserve offensive lineman, versatile guy who can play either guard spot. But it's just a lot of development to get there. There is a lot of mechanical and a lot of technical issues with him that you got to get around to developing and improving on him. A guy who I think was going to get drafted, another receiver, is Michael Jefferson out of Louisiana. On the 13th, just over a week ago, he was in a serious car accident, which he needed multiple surgeries for. Mm-hmm. He is a guy that I would look at based off his tape, at least bringing him in, seeing what he could do, because he was getting 4th, 5th round chatter before the car accident. Now it's a thing of he might miss a good portion of his rookie season as he's recovering from these surgeries. So those are a few guys, and there's quite a few others as well. I mean, not a great class, but there are some positions that have excellent depth, and some guys are going to fall.
Yeah. That guy you were just talking about, his name's spacing my brain right now. He was actually struck by a vehicle. He was hit by a drunk driver on Easter Sunday, I believe is what it was. So, thoughts and prayers go out to him. Hopefully he has a speedy recovery and he can come back and continue his play, and hopefully live out his dream as an NFL player. Quickly, Eric, before we get into this, I want one quick question for myself here. How about Xavier Valade? He's a running back, formerly from Wyoming, coming out of Arizona State. Decent receiver from what I remember at Wyoming. I didn't get a chance to watch him this last season. Runs with some good power. Upright pad level, though. Decent speed. Is he a guy that you would look at as an undrafted free agent for Denver?
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's a guy that I've liked him. Like every time I went back and looked at him, I liked him last year because before he decided to transfer, there was conversation he would decide to enter the draft early. I've liked his game. I don't think he's got draftable talent, but I could see it of like, oh, we're in the 7th round. We want a guy that is an undrafted free agent, but he's probably going to get a lot of talk. We'll just use a 7th round pick on him. That's what a lot of 7th round picks are. Mm-hmm. He's one of those guys for me. He's a priority free agent. I mean, as you said, he's got good enough speed, good enough explosive ability, can work, does enough as a receiver. If I remember correctly, his fumble rate is actually pretty good. Yeah. But I can't remember for sure on that. It's been a while. His scouting report was like the first one actually I got up at the end of February. Yep. So yeah, I like him, and I think he's worth that here. Real quick before we get to your best fit and worst fit, Todd Ossendorf comes in asking about Ford Wheaton. Looks like a younger, faster Sutton. Completely different play style. Mm-hmm. Bryce Ford Wheaton is Kevin White. He's a big, fast receiver that can challenge vertically, but things on underneath the possession aspect of his game isn't there. Mm-hmm. There's some issues with drops. His route running is not clean. Right now he is just a vertical threat that just has to develop every single aspect of his route running and just be completely built up as a receiver. However, he's a height, weight, speed guy. As you mentioned here, 6'4", 221, under sub 4.40. He's got the tools and traits to work with, and he's got the things that you can't teach. You can teach him to be a receiver. You can't teach him to be 6'4", 221 with a sub 4.40.
Absolutely. And something that really helps a lot with Bryce Ford Wheaton is his contested catch ability. And I think that's where Todd was going with his Cortland Sutton comparison there. Because Bryce Ford Wheaton, if I remember correctly, caught like 14 out of 18 contested catch scenarios in jump ball situations this year at West Virginia. So that's a big aspect of him. Like you said, 6'3", 220, 228 or whatever the hell it was, 4'3", 840, height, weight, speed guys. That's a great great prospect profile, at least. So he has the ability to be there.
He caught 6 of 14 this year.
Really? Okay. So then I must be thinking of someone different then, because I heard that on a podcast today, and I swear it was Bryce Ford Wheaton. So I do apologize for that, guys. Zebulon jumping in here really fast saying, have you guys heard about the new IQ test going? What?
Sorry. It was 18 to 34 this year. Sorry, I had the wrong season pulled up on his stats. In his career, he is 33 of 67.
So about 50%. That's not terrible. Yeah, that's not terrible. Anyway, Zebulon jumped in here asking about this new the IQ test, the S2 test.
Yeah, the cognitive test.
I haven't heard anything about it.
The NFL has been using it since 2016, so it's still relatively new. It's better than the Wonderlic. I mean, until we have a few more years of data on it, guys getting towards the end of their career, who have seen the field consistently, once we start getting data on that, I'm not sure how much to weight I put in it. Michael Ronquillo comes in talking about that. Says quarterback CJ Stroud had 18% S2 test score. According to one guy, according to Brady Quinn, and the reason why I mentioned that, I mean, this is an important factor. Brady Quinn has been busted exaggerating stuff quite a bit, and the people who run the S2, who came up with the test and everything, have come out and denied his report, and said that he scored significantly better than that 18%, and the 18% is completely false. Mm-hmm. The guys at the S2 with the S2 thing, they don't have any ties to teams. They have no reason to lie. Brady Quinn, he's got connections with teams. He could be being used for multiple reasons. I don't put a lot of stock into the report that he only scored 18%. It doesn't mesh with anything I've heard about being said from him about the coaching staff or anything. Not saying he's a great processor of the field. That is one of the concerns with him. But 18%, like, I question the authenticity of that from an anonymous source that Brady Quinn used. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. Could mean everything. Could mean nothing. So to me, it's not that big of a deal about it. But yeah, the S2 test, it's cognitive processing. One of the things on it is you have 6 cups on there. You know, it's that old game where you have to follow the right ball and figure out where it ends up. You know, follow the cups, whatever that game is called. Mm-hmm. There's like 6 cups and you have to follow it. Like that's part of it. It's sorting through information and everything like that. Mm-hmm. It's a cool test, and the early results of it are good. It is a 28.7, I think is what it is. Predictive ability when it comes to career passer rating, which I have a bit of a flaw or issue with that. Mm-hmm. But it's still new. And one thing too on this is NFL teams every single year are coming up with new analytics, coming up with new tests, just a bunch of new things to help them try to get an edge on scouting prospects. A lot of them don't last for more than a couple years, if that. We'll see the S2 test, the fact that it's been around since 2016 already, that's a positive sign for it. But it is just one element of the whole scouting process of it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it, so I'm not going to comment on that. But I do know that there's a lot of people really discrediting what Brady Quinn was saying. He also came out with another report about CJ Stroud not attending the Manning Passing Academy,
which has also been shut down.
Yeah, exactly. Like, consider the source here, guys. And I've never really been a huge fan of Brady Quinn, so take that with a grain of salt. But at the same time, like, if you're going to go out there and be debunked over and over and over again, you've lost pretty much all credibility to me. Real quick.
This is a funny comment, Aki, but just to be clear here, the S2 test, it's not an IQ test. Mm-hmm. So it's not a thing of that he would struggle to spell his name. Still funny. That's what the Wonderlic was. The Wonderlic was an IQ test that was extremely flawed. Players, coaches, NFL teams absolutely hated it. It was a thing that came up years ago and just has been hated ever since, and they've done away with that.
Yeah.
This is about processing and cognitive reasoning and things like that. And as Todd Arsendorf says, even though we've been talking about it a lot, I don't care about Shad one way or the other. We have no shot at him regardless. That is true. I mean, he is projected to be a top 10 pick at the very least. The only reason why he's worth talking about, and this is what I said in my scouting report on him, which just went up, there's a good chance he ends up in as a divisional opponent. The Raiders are looking at the quarterbacks. They've been linked heavily with CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson. So it's still worth looking at them because maybe we'll end up having to face them in this next season a couple times.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
But you're right. As for the Broncos, as for the conversation tonight, CJ Stroud, it's not a big part on it. So, Lance, with that, I don't know what your first position is that you're going to here, but who's your best and worst fit at whatever position is you're going to?
Well, I'm going to grab this comment. We were talking about wide receivers just a second, so it made it kind of a natural transition before we went into the S2 testing. But Todd Osendorf also comes back and he says, Marvin Mims, wide receiver from Oklahoma for me, please. That right there is my best fit for this Broncos team at the wide receiver position in this draft class. The reason why I say that is because they are looking for speed, reliable speed. And Marvin Mims can haul ass, dude. Like, this dude is a super, super good athlete. He's a quality route runner. And in fact, if you ask the guy, which, I mean, why wouldn't he say this? He claims that he's the best route runner in this draft class, which is far and away from anywhere close to the truth. Jackson Smith and Jigba does exist, people. But Marvin Mims, to me, like I said, he's more reliable than KJ Hamler. He really shrunk down his drop rate from his sophomore to his junior season. And like I said, he's just an elite athlete at the position in terms of taking the top off of the defense. He'd immediately be an upgrade over KJ Hamler because you have that reliability with him. So to me, that's the best fit for the Broncos at the wide receiver position. And in terms of a guy that is not a great fit, A.T. Perry, the wide receiver from Wake Forest, bigger, taller, lankier guy, good length and stuff like that. But the Broncos already have a couple of guys like A.T. Perry. And not to say that he's a possession receiver. I think he's more closer to Bryce Ford Wheaton than he is Cortland Sutton or Tim Patrick. But they don't need another big guy. They don't need another guy that's just that height, weight, speed, go down, deep threat guy. They need a guy that can work over the middle of the field, runs better routes than A.T. Perry, has a lot better athleticism than A.T. Perry, and just brings that dynamic speed threat. And you could use Marvin Mims as a gadget player too. He has several carries to his name in terms of jet sweeps. They threw him the ball a lot on screen plays and stuff like that. He's just a more versatile wide receiver, and to me, that's the best fit.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the wide receivers, and there are about 6 or 7 that I can make the argument for as being the best fit at wide receiver. And there's like 15 I can make the argument for being the worst fit. Marvin Mims was one of the guys that I would make the argument for as the best fit. A.T. Perry is one of the guys that I'd make the argument as one of the worst fits. Jaden Reed, he's another one that's a really good fit for the Broncos. I think Puka Nacua, like, he's not a great fit, but he's a good fit. There's been chatter that Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee, he could fall because he's a one-trick pony. If he did fall, he'd be a good fit for them. Grant DuBose, I think he's a great fit for the Broncos. Jonathan Mingo, like there's quite a few guys. But I mean, then we look at it. You have Keyshawn Butte, however you say his name, the LSU guy. He's not a great fit. Andre Iosavich, I don't think he's a great fit. Elijah Higgins, the guy out of Stanford, he's not a great fit. Cedric Tillman, another guy who they think is fall. I think he's a fine fit, not a great one. Jalen Wayne, the nephew of, I believe, of Reggie Wayne, he's not a great fit. So there's a lot of guys that there's great fits, there's bad fits at the wide receiver position. So it was just thinking of there was a lot of different ways that I could go. Now, I know we've talked about this quite a bit here. Who do you like better between Tank Bisbee and Israel Abanaconda? Thank you, Keith Brugman, for the question here.
Thanks, Keith. We appreciate you, man, and it was a pleasure to join you and Albert on your guys' podcast, the Denver Broncos Roundup, a couple weeks ago. So thanks for joining us again, man. Man, this is a hard one. Probably Abanaconda. I think he's a better fit for what the Broncos want to do because he's a really good receiver. Not to say that Tank Bigsby's a bad receiver, but he's not as good of a receiver as Abanikanda is. And I think Abanikanda has that home run speed that Bigsby just doesn't have. Bigsby's a little bit bigger of a player. He's more powerful. But with the lightning and thunder dynamic that you want to have, just that change of pace back, with Javonte Williams, if he comes back healthy, Abanikanda is the better fit for what the Broncos need, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that Abanikanda, he's got more of that home run ability with it. I don't think he's a consistent home run threat, but he brings more of that explosive play ability. He brings more as a receiver. I do like Tank Bigsby quite a bit as well, but he makes the sense if they don't want that explosive ability from the running back position and they just want power on top of power on top of power. Tank Bigsby's a good guy. Like there's decent burst to go get chunks of yards. He doesn't put the ball on the ground a lot, neither does Abanikanda. He just hasn't shown enough as a receiver consistently. So I wouldn't mind either one of them, but it just depends on what are you more looking for. And what, like you said, I think Abanikanda is a better fit for what they're doing. Yep. Real quick, just grabbing this from Ryan Powell. He says, Eric, did you get a chance to look at Hunter Lupecki? I think is how you say his name, but I'm maybe completely off on that. Can play halfback, fullback. He could back up. He could be a backup on fullback and special teams. Longer season injuries if we move on with our new fullback from the Chiefs next year. Yes, I actually have a scouting report on him, and of the fullbacks in this, he's the one I like the best. I think that you have a way to immediately see him on the field working as a special teams player. And next year, the Bolton, right? That's the fullback they brought in.
Dang it, what's his name? I think that's right. Let me look it up really fast. Go ahead.
Yeah. But I think that he's a good fit of a guy who can back him up this year. If you really want to go with the power aspect of it, then you can find ways to use him this season as a rookie. I like him, but he's a guy that I wouldn't use a draft pick on him. I mean, it's a fullback. I wouldn't draft the fullback with any pick. Michael Nkulo says Yaya Diaby from Louisville, no matter what. I can be with you on this one, Michael. I really like Yaya Diaby. And then last question.
I do.
Last question. Go ahead. I'm just going to grab. It says Ryan Powell. Is there any big wide receiver that blocks right? We could change him to tight end. No. The big one that comes to mind is Elijah Higgins out of Stanford, and he blocks about as well as who's a good comparison here. He blocks about as well as he doesn't block well. Well, I'll just say that. Michael Burton's his name. Elijah Higgins is probably the best bet for it, and I don't like his blocking whatsoever. He doesn't play physical. He plays soft. He consistently let himself get bullied at the Senior Bowl, and there's a guy who he's projected to be a nickel corner only in the NFL, and he absolutely just bullied Elijah Higgins consistently in one-on-one reps. I'm not sold on Elijah Higgins. He's the best one that comes to mind that fits that mold.
Well, if you're looking for a guy that has athleticism that can be a good blocking tight end that you can take later in the draft, why don't you just take Payne Durham from Purdue? There's a good blocker. He's a decent athlete. He's a really good receiver. Just take the tight end. Go that route instead. I want to go back to Yaya Diaby really fast because we've got Todd Osendorf jumping in here with my guy Adetomiwa Adebawore. And he says, nice prospect, great size and speed ratio, 6'2", 282, 449 on a 40-yard dash, broke a combine record for a guy with that particular size. Between the two, though, Eric, I actually like Yaya Diaby a little bit better as a football player because he's actually a football player. Adebawore to me is a guy he lacks urgency out on the field, and it just seems like he doesn't really get the game right now. He relies on that athleticism, but he doesn't use it the way you need to. Yaya Diaby, he may not be quite the athlete. He's a damn good athlete, don't get me wrong, but I like him better for the Broncos because he at least has some technical refinement to his game. What do you think?
Yeah, there are two different players at two different positions. Adebawore, he's not an edge in the NFL. He's a guy who's going to be moved around. He's going to be more interior. Yaya Diaby, he's not a true edge in the NFL either. He's going to be used as a hybrid guy between coverage and off the edge. Two extremely different styles of guys, and it just depends on what you're looking for. I think both of them would fit extremely well with the Broncos, but again, it just comes down to what are you looking at for. I like Adebawore. I don't fully agree with the lack of urgency aspect to his game. I think that it's just a matter of he's just can be overly patient at times,
Okay.
because earlier on in his career, when he was getting out there on the field, he was over aggressive and would open up holes for bigger plays or over pursue plays on the outside and just would make mistakes like that. And so he kind of developed patience, and he's just kind of overcorrected a little bit. So I like him. And Ossendorf asks, or Mike S asks where he goes to college. Adebawari came out of Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like him. And then Yaya Diaby, I mean, again, depends on what you're looking for. He can be this kind of hybrid guy. I don't want to say Zaven Collins-esque, who the Cardinals moved as to purely off-ball linebacker, but more of a Leonard Floyd type.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that you're playing an edge and can drop into coverage.
Right.
Is more of what he's looking for. So two different players that honestly shouldn't be super compared to each other, just for that reason. I mean,
right.
It's similar to comparing a cornerback to a safety with what they do in coverage.
Right.
What they bring is going to be completely different here. And then one last question, and then I'll get to my next best fit in here. What about the hype with Rashee Rice? Is he worth it? Would he be a slot for the Broncos? Rashee Rice was the best senior receiver coming out of the season. The issue is he's completely faltered every single step of the way of the draft process. He struggled at the Senior Bowl. Separation wasn't a big part of his game, but it was like there was absolutely nothing there at the Senior Bowl for him. Mm-hmm. He's more of a contested catch guy that can use his size and his catch radius to get the ball, but like Elijah Higgins, he just allowed himself to get bullied and didn't really fight through coverage a lot at the Senior Bowl. Right. I don't think he's a slot. I think he's more. I think he's a boundary receiver. One thing I do like about him, dude's feisty as a blocker. He will bring it every single rep as a blocker. There is no doubt about that. There's no doubt about his physicality. I like that to his game, but he is falling a little bit. If I'm looking for a receiver for the Broncos, again, it's what they seem to be looking for as well. They want explosive playmaking ability, and that isn't Rice.
No, it's not. And let me pull up his measurables really fast, because if I remember correctly, he was listed at Southern Methodist as 6'2", 215, and he measured in way smaller than that at the combine. If I remember correctly, it was 6 foot 205. Yeah, 6 foot 200 is what he's listed at coming out of the combine. So for a guy that likes to play with size, he doesn't have size. He's not a bigger receiver, and 6 foot 200 is plenty fine, but he plays like he's 6'4", 215. He plays like a bigger receiver than he actually is, and he just doesn't have that ability, and it's not consistent enough on his tape. You would like to see a little bit more explosiveness out of his game, but he just doesn't have that either. So I'm with you, Eric. I think he does bring that dog mentality as a blocker, and I think he's fine in contested to catch situations. But when you're at that small, going into the NFL level and trying to play with that kind of physicality, that's not really a red flag to me, but it's concerning. So to me, I'd rather go with a guy like Marvin Mims, like I said, that is a true slot receiver, that does have that explosive playmaking versus the ability, the versatility to put the ball in his hands and take it to the house from pretty much anywhere. I like Rice as a prospect, but it's just there's a disconnect somewhere with there. And he was touted as a top 20 player in this class coming into the season, and now we're talking about him being potentially available on day 3. So things are starting to kind of even out a little bit.
I don't know anyone that was hyping Rice as a top 20 player in this draft.
Oh, dude, it was
I heard top 50
over the place.
I heard top 50, but never top 20. It was always a thing of he might be the second or third best receiver in it. At one point, I know I had him before the Senior Bowl because I liked his tape, and I thought that I was expecting to be taller, and I was expecting him to show better, and I was projecting a little bit. I had him as a top 30 pick in my top receiver. But never top 20. I honestly, I don't know anybody that had him in a top 20. Going on to my next best of the worst fit, we're sticking in the trenches, but flipping the side of the ball to the interior defensive line. This is something that I think is a big need for the Broncos. I don't like their depth. I think Uwazurike still needs another year of seasoning and development before he could potentially reach his potential. I like the pick, but he was a guy who's more of an edge that has to transition inside. And there are still issues against the run game, though he showed improvement. And Matt Henningsen, I absolutely loved his game, but he's very limited as a player.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you doing to replace Deshaun Williams at the moment? Right now, it's looking like they're going with DJ Jones, Mike Purcell, and Zach Allen as their starting defensive line. And man, you are missing a lot of power there as a pass rush against a pass. I like Keanu Benton. He's my best fit. He's got the versatility you like. He can play it. He can play. He's a bigger version of DJ Jones.
Mm-hmm.
He's got more pass rush potential than DJ Jones. He's got more size than DJ Jones. And the lack of length of DJ Jones does hurt him as a pass rusher. And man, he's a guy who you can step in there right away as a starter, replacing Deshaun Williams, and be more than fine with the results about it. He's a great fit. Again, can move along the offensive line, brings enough of a pass rush there to help balance out the interior pressure with the edge pressure, working opposite Zach Allen, working with the outside edge rushers without losing anything against the run. Now, my worst fit, Mazi Smith. This is a pure nose tackle. Doesn't have much as a pass rusher. Doesn't have a lot of experience there. Still having to pick up a lot of stuff. His technique's really lagging behind. Maybe if you're moving on from Mike Purcell, Mazi Smith wouldn't be terrible. But it's a thing of, you got to make your decision here. Are you going Mike Purcell, the veteran guy, or are you going with Mazi Smith as a third-round pick, too? I don't think he'll be there in the fourth round. So that part of it goes into me as well. It's just the value. It's not there for me in the third round with Smith, even if you do get rid of Mike Purcell. So that's why Mazi Smith is my worst fit there along the defensive line.
I actually don't disagree with that because, like you said, pure nose tackle, freak of an athlete, absolute freak of an athlete, but he doesn't use it. Like, he's a great run defender, but he doesn't have very much pass rush potential, even though he's a great athlete with great length. Like, there's again, a disconnect with Mazi Smith. I'm also not sure he's going to make it to the third round. Buzz is right now. He's like potentially a tail end of the first round guy, early second round guy. I don't like the fit. I also did, though, just get done writing up Keanu Benton's scouting report. I'm sending that to Erick tonight. Hopefully that will be up here tonight as well, maybe a little bit after midnight or something like that. So make sure you guys keep your eyes out looking for that. We got Gary Palmer jumping in here with a $20 super chat off the top rope. Thank you, Gary, for your donation, man. We definitely appreciate that and love your support, man, as always. Saying, hey, Lance and Erick, just some support, guys. Good show. Go Broncos and buck 'em. Thank you, Gary. We definitely appreciate you on that. I'm going to stay on the same side of the football here, and actually in the same level of the defense here. I'm going to go to the edge defenders. The Broncos, we all know, have a lot of speed guys. There's Randy Gregory's a speed rusher, Baron Browning's a speed rusher, Nick Benito's a speed rusher, Jonathan Cooper's a speed rusher. None of them have ass that can play that 7 technique in the running game. We've talked about it multiple different times. We talked about this guy that I like as probably the best fit for the Broncos, and Felix Anudike-Uzomah, the edge defender from Kansas State. He's long, he's powerful, he plays with a good base, he's a really good run defender, very productive as a pass rusher, had 13.5 sacks this last season. I like the way that he plays the game. I think there's some versatility too. He can play that 5 technique if you want him to, can play outside to the 7. I think he can also play inside as a 3 tech if you want to, in the like a sub package, like a NASCAR package, and kind of help penetrate the interior of the pocket. I really like the fit for the Broncos there. Felix Anudike-Uzomah at 67 would be a great fit for me. And a guy that I like as a player, and I really wish that if he went undrafted, the Broncos would get an opportunity to take a look at him. I don't think he's going to make it past about the 6th round. This is Eku Leota, a guy that I talked about a couple weeks ago, the edge defender from Auburn. The reason why he's not a great fit is because he's a speed rusher. He's not very good in the running game, and the Broncos have a lot of those guys already, like I just mentioned. I think there's some development that you can get with him. I believe he came off of an injury, had a torn pectoral muscle coming out of Auburn this last season. So there's injury concerns there as well, which is causing him to fall a little bit. But I think that he's shown the ability to keep his outside hand free and play with good leverage in the running game. So I think you can kind of develop him there. But as of right now, the injury concerns, the fact that he's limited to a speed pass rusher only right now, just makes him a bad fit for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with those. I also have edge, and I'll just go ahead and go through that real quickly. And I was between Felix and my guy for it, and I'm glad I went with Zach Harrison instead. I think one of those two guys, I like Zach Harrison a little bit more. I think there is a lot more tools to work with when working as a pass rusher. And I think that he is a little bit more consistent as a run defender than Felix is. But I mean, either way, you can't go wrong. They both can kind of do the same thing there for you. Todd Ossendorf says Byron Young or Zach Harrison. I like Byron Young, the Tennessee edge rusher, not to be confused with Byron Young, the Alabama interior defensive lineman. I like him. I don't love him. And I think what he brings to the table is much of the same of what the Broncos already have. My bad fit at edge, Isaiah Foskey. Talk about a guy who hasn't lived up to the hype. I mean, the dude is so stiff in the hips. He's got to be a straight up guy, but he doesn't have the power to consistently be a straight up guy. So, I mean, it's a questionable fit. I don't want to speak in certainty here. Obviously, Isaiah Foskey can end up being an excellent edge defender in the NFL. I don't see it. He is a guy that when I watched him at the Senior Bowl, when I watched him over my reevaluations that I had in March, he was a guy that I looked at and I'm like, man, he's going to hang around because of the pedigree, but he's essentially going to be out of the NFL in 3 or 4 years. Like, and every time I watched him, so something like the tight hips, like there's not that much there in his arsenal. He can struggle at the point of attack at times. Like, it's just so many concerns with him. Now, cleaning up a little bit out of the chat, we have Icky Dragon.
Just quickly on Foskey, you said that you had Felix Anudike-Uzomah as one of your good fits, and you're glad you went in another direction with Zach Harrison as your good fit. My other bad fit was Isaiah Foskey. I'm glad I went with that Leota because he was the one that was like, man, I'm not with it, dude. Speed to power conversion with the guy that's like 240 pounds and he's got good length. He's, like you said, he's got the pedigree. He's the all-time sack leader at Notre Dame, but like he's super stiff. He doesn't have a whole pass rush arsenal. His whole arsenal is literally a long arm and leverage. Like that's it. He doesn't have bend. He doesn't have any swim or spins or anything like that. So I'm with you on that. Bad fit. Go ahead.
Watching him do the drills at the combine where they had a spin move was hilarious. It was one of the best comedies of this year, behind Broncos football. Anyways, Icky Dragon comes in. Tight end Darnell Washington from Georgia is a freak. He is like absolute freak. Jordan Battle, is he a good fit? He's a fine one. I wouldn't go out there and pound the table for him. Except I might, because this safety class is kind of bad.
It really is.
Had to change my language there before I said something I'm not supposed to. Benjamin Flores, howdy, gentlemen. Thank God it's Friday. Sean Payton is one long-winded dude and great at saying a whole lot of nothing. Can't imagine him and Wilson chopping up, talking in circles. Yeah, to be an NFL head coach, you have to say a whole lot without saying nothing. It's one of the qualifications you have. You have to be able to do it. Every coach does it. I mean, it's a thing of like, you want to say things to get people to talk about and keep fans coming in and watching and paying attention without giving away anything that you want to do. It's a lot of keeping things hidden from other teams, a lot of secrets and stuff like that. It's NFL coaching. It's being a general manager. It's anything in the NFL. If you want to work in the NFL, you got to be great at saying a whole lot of nothing while you're saying a whole lot. Todd Ossendorf, Darnell Wright has a chance to fall to us at 67. Anchored the D-line as our nose tackle. Are you talking about moving him from tackle or guard from the offensive line to the defensive line? Because I'm not doing that. Not at his size. Like, I'm going to sit there and if I'm running a power gap scheme, I'm plugging him in at guard. But there are character stuff coming up about him that I could see him fall and everything. But I still don't think he falls to the Broncos personally, even with the character stuff around it. Ossendorf says, real quick, what round does Mazi Smith go? Could the Broncos try and get the nose tackle they lack? They don't lack a nose tackle. They have Mike Purcell. And as I said, I think Mazi Smith goes somewhere in the mid-late third round. So little early for that third round pick, not there for that fourth round pick. And he doesn't interest me a whole lot for the Broncos personally.
I'm surprised that you just said that they don't need a nose tackle because they have Mike Purcell. I'm so proud of you right now. I really am.
Well, I mean, until he's off the roster,
right. Like, I know him.
If they were going to cut him, they would have done it already. They don't have a thing of injuries last year before he was able to keep himself cemented on the roster with the preseason or with the training camp and preseason he had. So I mean, like, he's there, like he's their nose tackle.
Yeah, How about Siaki Ika from Baylor? Todd jumping in here again. I'm going to start off on this one. Super athletic, but he doesn't play to that. He's got a very inconsistent motor. I liked him a lot more in 2021 than I did in 2022. There's a reason why he is having a precipitous fall from grace. There were a lot of people I know from earlier in the year, just like Ryan Roberts, Trevor Sikkema, guys at the Draft Network, they were saying Siaki Ika, early second-round player. He's going to be lucky to get drafted before the 5th round, in my opinion. He's super limited because he doesn't play to that athleticism. He's, like I said, he's so hot and so cold. He doesn't bring you a whole lot as a pass rusher, although he can do that. And he just gets moved off his spot. Like, for a guy as big as he is, you shouldn't be able to be moved like that. Like, you should be able to eat space, put your ass in the ground, and and drop a firm anchor. And Siaki Ika just does not do that anymore. And I don't know why. It blows me away for a guy that's 340 freaking pounds that he gets just thrown around like a rag doll.
Yeah, he doesn't use power or his athleticism gets the run. And he seems so lackadaisical when it comes to defending the run. The effort is questionable. Like, he just doesn't read well or read the run very well. But the dude can get after the quarterback. Mm-hmm. Like, that's where he uses his athleticism, where he uses his speed. I mean, last year as a pass rusher, or 2021 as a pass rusher, like, there was so much hype around him because of what he could do as a pass rusher, as a nose tackle. Mm-hmm. Didn't carry over, kind of fell off a little bit, but Baylor kind of changed things up a little bit on the defensive front, which may have hurt him.
That's fair.
So it kind of hurt there. But I mean, it's just the thing of, like, when you want your nose tackle, run defense is the priority. Pass rush is the second aspect of it. And Siaki Ika is the complete opposite of it. Not to mention, he's really heavy, carries bad weight, has to clean that up. But there's questions about that because they tried to do that at Baylor and had issues with that. There's just a lot of issues there with it. And, I mean, there's guys I think that you can look at for the nose tackle position that you can have later that not necessarily will be better than Ika would be, but just make more sense from a value standpoint than using a 4th or even 5th round pick on Ika when you only have 5 picks in the first place.
Yeah.
Couple more before we get back to this, even though we have to get out of here soon.
Yeah.
Michael Ronquillo, I hope to keep the golf cart upright, quote from Sean Payton yesterday during the press conference. Thoughts? I'll pass this off to you. I don't know anything about the golf cart. Like, I've seen it mentioned. I don't know what happened. I don't care. So I really don't know. I didn't watch the press conference today. I don't know what the full quote is. I don't know anything about the golf cart. I'm completely in the dark here.
It's dumb. So Russell Wilson and Justin Simmons and a couple other Broncos players were out in Littleton the other day, and they were golfing, and somehow they managed to flip a golf cart over into one of the sand bunkers. Now, the story is that Justin Simmons was driving the cart, and he was looking for his ball, not paying attention to where he was going, and accidentally rolled the cart. Non-story. It's literally like the stupidest damn thing I've ever seen, and it's just – to me, I think that this is one of those situations of everyone piling on Russell Wilson because that's who the story was about. Everyone was saying, "Oh, well, Russell Wilson out here being a dumbass again." Like to me, no. Like, leave it alone, guys. Stuff happens. It was an accident. He didn't get hurt. Nobody got hurt. Everyone was fine. Why is this a story?
And Michael, Lance isn't ranting at you about it. Just to be clear, we appreciate the question. He's ranting about the other people who are making this a thing, the other analysts and writers and stuff like that that apparently are making it a thing. But I don't know anything about it. If anything, based off of what Lance just said, I'd say it was probably just a tongue-in-cheek comment from Sean Payton about it.
It really was.
That's kind of how I see it. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, real quick, I'm going to rattle off my last 3 real quick, and then I'll pass it off to you. My last 3 positions, I have cornerback. I think Corey Trice is an excellent fit. Cover 1, cover 2 man, cover 3 that the Broncos are going to be running under Vance Joseph. He is a natural fit. He's a big physical guy, and he can use it, just not consistently. And I just want to see improvement with there, which you can improve that. Getting him around Patrick Surtain, who has the same kind of questions. I mean, like Damari Mathis and his physicality. It's just there's so much to work with. As for a bad fit, Caillou Blue Kelly. This is going to be a press defense. They're going to press their corners quite a bit. That's not his strength. I like him a lot better off where he can see the play and react to it. I think that plays to his strengths a little bit better. So he's not a great fit there. Running back, My worst fit here is Melvin Gordon Jr. and Zach Evans out of Ole Miss. Fumble rate is
Through the roof.
terrible. But he's the same type of runner. Like what you got out of Melvin Gordon as a player is the same thing you get out of Zach Evans. I mean, the slasher style. My one fit, Evan Hall. The running ability is there. He can make himself small between the tackles. He's got good vision, good enough speed. Not a serious home run hitter consistently, but he's got enough burst and everything. He can make big chunk plays. He's willing as a pass blocker at the Senior Bowl drills and consistently on tape. He does a great job as a pass protector. Sometimes, okay, let me rephrase that. He gives great effort as a pass protector, and a lot of times there's good consistency with his success at it. Not every single rep, though. And then Edge I already mentioned was Zach Harrison and Isaiah Foskey as my other fits. So go ahead, Lance. What are your last few?
Last few that I have here, I also have some running backs for you guys. My good fit and a guy that I really like for the Broncos, and because he brings a lot of versatility as a receiver, Kenny McIntosh out of Georgia. He's a decent pass protector as well. Really good speed, got some home run ability to him, nice size. But the thing that I really liked about him is I'm not going to compare him to Alvin Kamara, but I'm going to say that the Broncos could use him very similarly to that. Get him out in the flats, get him out on swing routes. He's a really good wheel route runner, good angle route runner over the middle of the field. He catches the ball really well. I think he can work a little bit better and develop some more strength. He doesn't really finish runs the best, but I mean, for a lightning and thunder kind of aspect, you want to have that guy that you can put out there on third downs. He can still run the football between the tackles for you, and he's just a really good receiver. I like that fit a lot. So for the bad fit of that, Muhammad Ibrahim, the running back, I believe I got his name right, from Minnesota. It's not that I don't like the talent. I think that he can do pretty much everything that you want. It's just he's 25 years old right now. He's got a lot of miles on his tires, and he's got injury concerns out the wazoo. And with the Broncos right now already having Javonte Williams, they don't need another injury-prone running back. At safety, I really like Sidney Brown from Illinois, and I think he'd be a really good pair with Justin Simmons because they can do a lot of the same things and just make that defensive front more versatile. Sidney Brown may not have the range that you need to have for a single high safety, but he can play with the double high. He can come down around the box. He's a really good tackler, and something that really stands off the tape for him is the fact that it's not really off the tape, but it also off the field here. He's a great leader. He gets his guys lined up. Out of the Senior Bowl, he was helping guys line up. He was coaching players off on the side after they got done with their rep, trying to help them with their technique and everything like that. That's a guy that I really like as a good fit for the Broncos. In terms of a bad fit, Brandon Joseph from Notre Dame. A lot of the same things as Sidney Brown in terms of coverage versatility and stuff like that. Great ball skills, but the dude can't tackle to save his life. He literally could not stop a running nose if he tried. He's a horrible tackler out in open space, and that's just a bad fit for what Vance Joseph likes to do with the safeties. And to finish this out here, going to flip us over to the offensive line here really fast. A couple of guys that are looking tackle guard versatility, but I think that swing tackle is a big need for this team. The Broncos obviously have Garrett Bowles. They have Mike McGlinchey they brought in from the San Francisco 49ers in free agency, but they lost Calvin Anderson. They lost Cam Fleming in free agency. So they need to have a guy that has some right and left tackle versatility. And to me, that guy is Warren McClendon out of Georgia. He played on the right and left side. Georgia did this really weird thing where they kind of rotated their guys through and whatnot. They'd have Broderick Jones and Warren McClendon on the field, and then they take Broderick Jones off for a series, put Warren McClendon at left tackle, and then they bring Broderick Jones back on and take Warren McClendon off. So he showed that ability to play on both sides of the offensive line. So I think you got a good swing tackle versatility there. Good power, fits the scheme, decent length, and a fairly decent athlete. The bad fit for me, and the reason why I say this is because I don't think he has that left tackle versatility. So he's not going to be that swing tackle for you. He's probably going to slide inside the guard with a lack of power. Wanya Morris from Oklahoma. I like the player, just don't like the fit. That pretty much rounds out what I have there.
My one concern with Kenny McIntosh is the fumble rate.
Yes.
That's been a big part of my evaluation for running backs this year is fumble rates. Obviously, it's not make or break with the grade, but after Melvin Gordon and the issues we had, want to avoid that. 1 out of 100 is the ideal. That's the minimum I'm looking for. It's from what I've heard, it's the minimum that teams are typically looking for. And Kenny McIntosh is like 1 every 70, which is just my concern there. But the rest of that, I agree with for the most part. I'd probably flip Wanya Morris and Warren McClendon personally. I think that Morris has a little bit more to offer to work on the outside than McClendon does. Both of them, I think, could do it, and I think Morris. The issue with both of them is I don't think either one of them is the best scheme fit for what the Broncos are doing. Michael Ronquillo comes in with a couple comments here saying, always fun talking Broncos football and the NFL draft. It is. We absolutely love it. We love to do it every single week. This is my favorite time of year, despite being so exhausted. And then Michael Ronquillo says, without Lance and Erick on scouting NFL draft pick prospects, there is no NFL draft. Hey, we appreciate that. I mean, there's a lot of great guys out there. So, who scout the draft. I mean, Dane Brugler, he's one of my go-to guys that I always do. Whenever he makes an opinion on a player, I listen to it. I mean, it doesn't change my opinion, but if it's disagreeing, I may go back and check my evaluation on it too. Mike asks, who's the top center available? For me, it's John Michael Schmitz. I know that there are a few teams that have Joe Tippmann as the top guy as well. So it's a bit of a difference there. Jeffrey Baker, do you guys think a trade would happen on draft night involving KJ or Cortland? I think it's entirely possible, Lance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that if any of those guys are going to get moved, it's probably going to be Cortland Sutton. The money is the big thing here. I think Jerry Jeudy is a guy that teams are going to like. He showed that value, but I don't think the Broncos are willing to move on from him. And KJ Hamler just doesn't have a market. What are you going to get for a guy that's coming off of a torn ACL and hip surgery? It's been just super inconsistent, has hamstring concerns and drop issues. Like you like the speed aspect, you like the ability to take the top off the field, but that's why I'm looking for Marvin Mims at the wide receiver position, or a guy like a Trey Palmer. Like those speedy guys that have good hands, that are versatile, that you can do a whole lot of stuff with. KJ Hamler just doesn't have a market right now, and unfortunately, he's going to have to show up or shut up. And it's going to be I believe this is year 4 for him. So this is his last year in a Denver Broncos uniform. He's either going to make the team or they're going to move on from him, and I don't think they're going to get anything in return for him. As far as Cortland Sutton goes, I think you can get probably a 4th and a 5th round pick in a pairing, but I don't know if you want to do that with Tim Patrick coming off of the torn ACL. You still have to have something reliable. And Cortland, while there's some inconsistencies there, he is one of the most reliable players you have on this roster. Like you can't move on from a guy like him when you don't know what you're going to get from Tim Patrick on the outside. So I think he's the most likely to move, but the one that I don't think that they're going to move.
I completely disagree with you with what you said about Jerry Jeudy and the Broncos not wanting to move him. I think they do. I think they just want a lot for him. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to get that. Mm-hmm. So they won't move him. KJ Hamler, he's dealing with his torn pec, right? That he had working out.
Yeah, he just had a torn pec.
That makes him damn near impossible to trade. Cortland Sutton, that's where they possibly could make a move. But from what I've gathered, the offer seemed to be about a couple day 3 picks, and that is not what the Broncos are wanting. And so it sounds like that he'll end up sticking around too, unless that changes. Mm-hmm. Todd Osendorf, another question, says, could Zach Charbonnet fall to the 3rd round? Seems like if there is a mini run, he could be gone earlier. Before that, there was another question here, since it was about a running back as well, saying Tyen Evans is a natural pass catcher with good speed and size. How about him? I love Zach Charbonnet. He is my number 3 running back in this. Unfortunately, I think he will also go in the top 50. Dude has fumbled once in his career. His fumble rate is like once every 700 touches. Like absolutely insane. I think it's more like 300, but whatever. He's quick. He's got decent enough speed. He shows up well as a blocker. He's got good receiving skills. Like there's a reason why he was the bell cow there at UCLA in that Chip Kelly scheme. As for Tyen Evans, the dude has 11 catches in his career. He has 164 total rushing attempts and has put the ball on the ground 4 times. Again, fumble rate, that's a huge issue for me. 3 of those fumbles came in 2022 after he transferred from Tennessee to Louisville. He's a guy he's drawn quite a few penalties, didn't force a large amount of missed tackles. He's a guy that maybe as an undrafted free agent, I take a look. Definitely not wasting a draft pick on him. He's a guy that I think maybe you can look at him and come up as a 3rd round pick. And also too, I mean, he faced some tough competition and completely failed. He fell flat on his face against tougher competition. His best game he had, I believe, was against like James Madison. Some small school like that. That was his best game of the season. And where he picked up literally almost over 1/5 of his rushing yards on the season. So I'm not a big fan of Tyen Evans, but Zach Charbonnet, I absolutely love him. I don't think he will be there though.
I'm with you on that. I don't think he's going to make it there. There was a very, very fun conversation I heard. I believe it was from Ryan Roberts at the Believe in NFL Draft Prospects podcast, was saying something about Zach Charbonnet, because I believe he transferred, was he at Ohio State or Michigan? It was one of those schools. And he transferred to UCLA and got the opportunity to go out there. Well, he doesn't fit what UCLA is like, and I'm not saying they didn't fit their scheme or anything like that, but like when you think of Pac-12 running backs, you don't think of 225-pound guys that are just bruisers in the running game. Like Zach Charbonnet runs with a hell of a lot of power, and he's got good speed and good burst too. What they were saying was it's crazy to see a Big Ten running back out in the Pac-12 and just running people over. And Ryan Powell, thank you for that. He was at Michigan. That's right. Like you don't see those guys like that out in the Pac-12, and you could tell. You could tell bigger, more powerful back out there like that. He was running dudes over all over the tape at UCLA. So I like him a lot. I'm with you, Eric. I think he's probably going to go in the top. I don't know about top 50, top 60, though. He's definitely not going to make it to the Broncos. Well, I guess I shouldn't speak in absolutes here because that's never a good thing to do. But I don't envision him making it to 67 or 68.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Now, before we get out of here, because we got started a little late, my fault, on that, I have one question for you.
Yeah.
We won't be seen again until Thursday night. I don't know if Chad has released the plans out there for everybody on the public or not, for what we're doing with the draft night, but we won't see you guys again until Thursday night. I know we will be live for all 3 nights. One bold prediction when it comes to the Broncos in the draft this year. What is yours?
Should I play into James Campbell's like heartstrings here and just tug on him a little bit and say that the Broncos are going to trade up and take Hendon Hooker? Like
that would be bold.
It'd be way bold. I don't think that's going to happen. I do envision them trading up for somebody though. Like I could see that happening. And I don't know what they would use to do that. Maybe this is the Courtland Sutton deal. You use Courtland Sutton as like that trade piece to move on. Maybe take 68 and Courtland Sutton, package those together to move into the middle of the second round. And target a cornerback or maybe an edge defender, like
to the middle of the second round.
Yeah, I'm thinking in the 40s area, 38 to 44, somewhere around in there.
I think you're getting. I don't think you're getting above 55.
Okay,
Courtland Sutton's value is not there. Like the value of trading receivers this year has been made very clear. It's not there. And then 68, like. So let me rephrase that. Maybe you can get to like closer to 50.
Yeah.
But in the 40s, like I don't think you're breaking 40.
You're probably right. But let's say that like Julius Brents, the cornerback from Kansas State, is falling. And
I'm not sure. You shouldn't trade up for a corner this year. It's such a strong class.
It is. But like that's the kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I get it. And I asked for bold. It's a bold prediction. Now, real quick before I give mine. Todd asks, what do I think about NFL Draft Bus? Never heard of it. No idea about it. So I don't know. Like I've never heard of it before.
Is that the website, Todd? I think I know what you're talking about. NFLDraftBuzz.com. I think that's what that is. Get back to us really fast. Go ahead.
I'm going to go the complete opposite of you. I don't see the Broncos trading up from the 3rd round. I think if they trade up, I could see them trading up from the 6th round or the 5th round or something like that. I could see that. I don't think they have the ammo to move up from the 3rd round into that 2nd round. I don't think they do. And I don't think they will. And I think they know that. My thing is I think they trade down in the 3rd round at least 2 times, maybe 3. While keeping one of 67 or 68, most likely 67. As in they trade down from 68 to like 72 or 73, something like that, somewhere in there, or between 70 and 75. Get another day 3 pick or 2, and that trade down again, about 10 picks or so, get an extra pick, and then make one more trade, stay in the top 100, and then get an extra pick, and kind of restock that pile up. So then later on, as I mentioned earlier, just a couple seconds ago, then trade up with that 5th or 6th round pick and packing those up. Maybe even that 4th round pick, getting a little bit higher or getting back into the end of the 3rd round, doing something like that.
Right.
That's my bold prediction. I think they find a way to move around the board a good amount with this, even with 5 picks, and that they still walk away making at least 7 draft picks.
I could definitely see that. It's bold for sure. I guess my one question to you is, do you think they trade both 67 and 68, or do they just trade one of those picks?
Just one of those. That's what I said. It's like, while keeping 2 or 3 moves in the 3rd round while keeping one of 67 or 68.
Oh, I missed that part of it. I'm sorry. I was reading. Yeah, I would rather keep 67. That's the guy that you've identified, and go get him. Todd jumps in and says, yes, it's a draft prospect website that shows analysis. I've seen it before. I've been there just to kind of draw some names and get kind of an idea of what the class is. Some of their ratings are wonky, but they do a good job of keeping like all the statistics and stuff like that. Eric, if you get an opportunity, you might check it out and just see what you think. I'd much rather use Lance Zierlein, Dane Brugler, Daniel Jeremiah, guys like that. The Draft Network, I'm friends with a lot of those guys over there at the Draft Network, so I like to go to those for the majority of the stuff that I need. But the NFLDraftBuzz.com, it's all right. It's at least another good resource. It's better than Walter Football. So
yeah. Real quick, last question here, since we're going with this. Keith Brugman asks, who do other teams get that we pass on by trading down 3 times? That's a good question, and it could just be like maybe the board doesn't fall the way at 67 and 68, and while the Broncos still want a corner, none of the corners they have fits their scheme, is on their board, whatever the case may be, but another team has them on. Someone like, let's say here, Caillou Blue Kelly, maybe he's on the board at 68, and some team really wants him because he fits what they do. They play a lot of off-zone coverage. Caillou Blue Kelly, he's a good fit for that, but that's not what the Broncos do. It's situations like that. Maybe Blake Freeland, a guy who I view as a good scheme fit for an heavy outside zone scheme. Maybe he's there on the board, and some team wants to get up on him because after him, in my opinion, there's not much left in the tackle room. But for the Broncos, who are going more power gap, he's not a great fit for him. So maybe that's another thing. So it's definitely options. And the thing of every team only has maybe about 100 to 150 players on their board. A lot of them are off because they don't fit the scheme, because of character issues, because of medicals. Whatever the case is, they're not on the board. But just because one team doesn't have them on the board doesn't mean another team does. So it's just one of those things about that. Base case comes in with, who is your oh no burrito picks at 67, 68? Hendon Hooker, going back to James Campbell. I had this whole conversation with him privately. But no, I think Hendon Hooker will be gone by then. I don't really know. Like, honestly, like, with the names that have been linked to the Broncos, went those in that range, none of them stand out as a oh no pick for me.
The one, and I watched this tape again today, and I'm so unimpressed with how raw he is and the inconsistency with his hand placement and his motor and stuff like that. Gervin Dexter from Florida. I'm just not a fan of his at all. Like,
I will reach through this computer and I will slap you.
I'm not a fan, man. I'm just not a fan.
And I love like long defensive linemen, 6'6". Like,
There's
give me that all day. I'll work on how he's 5 seconds late off the snap. I'll work on that stuff. Like, it's one of those things. Like, give me the traits on the defensive line, and he's got those traits. Anyways, guys, we gotta get out of here. We are past the mark where we're supposed to be. Sorry again for getting so late. Started so late. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and Lance will sit here and send us off and everything. And I can't wait till the draft. And I hope to see you guys in the draft room Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday. And Saturday will be a long one. Hope to see you guys there start to finish.
Yeah. Todd jumping in at the buzzer here. Thanks for the show and the analysis, guys, with the $2 super chat. Thank you, Todd, and thank you for all your questions, man. It helped us drive through this show and get us a little bit more content. You brought up some interesting names, some guys that I hadn't really got a chance to hear from. So to hear Erick's analysis is just awesome, man. Keith, I will get at you in the DMs. Keith Brugman, your thoughts on DeMarvion Overshown? Love that dude. Anyways, guys, got to get out of here. We're running late. Thank you all for joining us here on Dove Valley Deep Divers Podcast. Follow us on Twitter by finding me at Lance S_. MHH. For Erick, at Erick Trickel. Also, guys, make sure you guys are following at Mile High Huddle. That's the mother account where you guys get breaking news and analysis regarding your Denver Broncos. All of our scouting reports are on there, as well as they are at milehighhuddle.com. Great way to just show some support. Excuse me. If you guys aren't financially able to do so and support the show with super chats or go to the merch store or whatever that may be, subscribe wherever you guys are watching this: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, doesn't matter. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Give a 5-star rating, and if you love it, please share it and get it in front of as many Broncos fans as possible, because without you guys' support, we couldn't do what we do best. And with that, guys, Erick, you already got your last words. I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. You all stay safe and take care. Have a great rest of your weekend, and as always, go Broncos. We'll see you guys next